Hey guys, Greg Alexander. Got another video coming to you today. And today I'm going to give you my best March baits for bass fishing. Now understand that March is a transition month. The old saying goes, in like a lion, out like a lamb. A lot of people think that's, well, it comes in hard on the weather and out easy on the weather. And it does mean that, but actually that means it comes in under the constellation Leo, the lion, and out under the constellation Aries, the lamb or the sheep. So anyhow, March is a transition month. Depending on what part of the nation you're in, March could be winter for you still. In the south, it's, we're getting into spawn. And in the middle sections of the country, this is starting pre-spawn, strong pre-spawn. So let's start with my first March bait. My first March bait would be a large spinnerbait, a large bladed spinnerbait. And why do I say a large spinnerbait? Large anything in March, because remember now, nothing has spawned yet. There's no fry, there's no small bait around. The bait is all fully mature at this time of year. There's a lot of gizzard shad, full-size shad in your lakes around, bluegill, perch, white perch, yellow perch, things like that swimming. So large baits are going to be most effective in March, probably more effective in March than any other month of the year. We're pre-spawn. The fish have been sitting back all winter. They're hungry. They're looking for a big meal. They're looking to gorge up to get ready for the spawn. So bigger baits than you would normally throw will be more effective in March than any other time of year. That being said, smaller baits still work, but bigger baits, this is the time to throw them. The first one will be a large spinnerbait. The second bait I would throw in March is a jerk bait, still a suspending jerk bait. Later in March, I may go with a floating version of a jerk bait because the fish are going to be more active in shallower water. The next bait that I would pick for March is a lipless crankbait. Now, red, raven red is always a good color in the spring, especially, but any type of shad color will work also. Lipless crankbait has that tight wiggle to it that just seems to work best in cooler or colder water situations. Now with a lipless crankbait, a lot of times in March in your lakes, the grass, if you have a grass lake, the grass is just starting to come up off the bottom. Or if you had a warm winter, maybe it stayed all winter. But so a lipless crankbait's always going to work in a grass lake, but it also works in lakes without grass. Any place that you have hard bottom areas that these fish would be staging on in the pre-spawn, that lipless is going to work. Now, let's talk about another event. I did a video on shaky head fishing and I said you can catch them on shaky head 365 days a year. Well, in March, a shaky head still works, and I'm adding it to my list with this caveat. Shaky head. You don't need to throw a shaky head if the weather's warming, the water's warming, the fish are active, coming shallow, sunny days, things like that. You don't need to throw a shaky head. You can if you want to. You don't need to throw a shaky head. But I put a shaky head in March in because so many times in the month of March, especially here in the mid-Atlantic, we'll have a nice week and then 3 cold days. And then a nice week and then 3 or 4 cold days. It kind of cycles back and forth a lot. So there'll be days in March where they're not biting that. There'll be days in March where they'll bite that a little bit. But there'll be days in March where it's cooled down, high pressure, blue skies, cold north wind. Got cold the last couple of nights. The water temperature dropped a couple degrees instead of steadily rising. And it's time to go pick that shaky head up again in March. Now, another bait that you would want to throw in March, especially for bigger fish, is a swim bait. Now, this is a larger swim bait. Doesn't have to be this big. It's a 6-inch version. But a 4 or 5-inch swim bait is going to catch larger fish in March. Remember, there's a lot of gizzard shad active, a lot of mud shad active if you got rivers. And the bigger fish will eat those bigger swim baits. That's a money bait. That's a money bait right there for catching bigger fish. But I'm going to go to my #1 bait for March next. My #1 bait for March, the old Bladed Jig. Now, I could have, this one has a boot tail trailer. You can throw a Zaco trailer. You can throw an assortment of different trailers on there. But the key is you want a bulky bait that moves a lot of water. You're generally dealing with a little bit dingier water in March when the rains start coming. And big fish will eat this up. That would be my #1 March bait. Now, there's people that throw crankbaits and things like that, and pretty much anything will work in March. But those are my top 6 baits for March. If you take those baits out, March, water's hitting 50 degrees to 60 degrees for the month of March usually. Those are the baits that you can rely on to catch them day in and day out. Again, if you like my videos, my instructional videos, please hit the subscribe button and the like button and the little bell thing. That'll give you alerts when I have a new video coming out. I have several on the water videos coming up here in the near future. I'm going to be doing a spawning instructional video here soon. I got a couple gear reviews coming up and some tournament reports. My first Bass Northern Open is on the James River here in April. Last year I led that tournament the first day. The Bass Northern Open on the James River, ended up finishing 5th overall in that tournament. So I'll have a tournament report coming up on that, going into that with my pre-fishing and also after the tournament. So I hope you learned something today. I hope that these tips help you to catch more fish, bigger fish, and have a blessed day.